welcome to today's video. And in today's video, I'll be doing an updated 2022 Senate map. Today is April 2nd. Now, I didn't do one yesterday. Normally, I do it on the 1st and the 15th of every month, or I guess it really depends on the month. The 31st, I guess, for most months would have been the 30th. Had I done it in March, would have been like the 31st. Had I done it in January. You get the gist. Would have been I think 31st had I done it in July, which obviously I'm not going to do it in July. You get the gist. The last day of the month or the first day of the next month, and then the 15th of the month. But yesterday was April Fool's Day, so I decided to do something special for that. I did Jeb Bush versus Radical Liberal Raphael Warnock. Yeah, so let's get started with this video. By the way, sorry if you hear like beeping noises in the background. I'm currently on vacation. We're Airbnb-ing a place, like a townhouse on a mountain in a rural town out in the middle of nowhere by some lake. I'll be back in my house tomorrow, though. Hopefully. I mean, like, we're expected to leave tomorrow. If all goes as planned, I'll be in my house tomorrow. But yeah, I'm gonna get started by labeling all the Democrats safe states: Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii. I do think that Colorado would be safe. I don't think that. First off, I mean, like, the GOP, the Colorado GOP. I mean, like, I don't really study into like the Colorado GOP much, or at all for that matter. But I would not assume that they're a very moderate GOP. Most GOPs are pretty far right. But in Colorado, I mean, like, Michael Bennet won by a larger margin than Hillary Clinton did on the same ballot, and Joe Biden won the state by 13.5%. If he outperformed Clinton in the state, Biden won it by 13.5%, he's likely going to overperform him and probably carry it by 14.2% regularly, maybe 15% just on a normal ballot. However, this will be 2 years later, after the state's already had 2 years to shift, which it's shifting to the left. So I do think it'll be safe. Illinois, I mean, like, the GOP is supposedly targeting it, but I mean, like, Tammy Duckworth flipped it by a safe margin. It's not going to be close. Maryland and Vermont, if Larry Hogan and Phil Scott were to run, they could be competitive. I would say this is probably like the best case scenario that the Democrats have. Maybe this or this, but both are unlikely. And both probably won't run anyways. They're not like New Hampshire with Sununu, where he's overwhelmingly popular and the state didn't vote for Biden by 30%. I mean, like, Biden won the state by less than 8%, while he won both Vermont and Maryland by over 30%. So I mean, like, we can assume that it'll be not as competitive as New Hampshire would be. For the GOP's safe states: Utah, Idaho, the Dakotas, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Iowa, Indiana, Kentucky, Alabama, South Carolina, and that is it. So looking at their safe states, and essentially looking at the potential states that could be close: Iowa, Indiana, Kentucky, and Alabama. I'll be discussing Alabama. The Democrats would have to run someone like Doug Jones, but the GOP would also have to run a candidate that's a really bad candidate. But in Alabama, Republicans, there's no ideologically bad candidate for the Republicans in Alabama because it's a very, very conservative state. Richard Shelby is retiring, by the way, so that's why this is even being brought up. But they would have to run somebody who is seriously disliked because of a major scandal or something like that. In Kentucky, Rand Paul actually won by a likely margin. I think I'll still carry it safe, but he did win by a likely margin in 2016. Indiana, the Indiana Republican or Democratic Party is pretty good. I mean, like, they tend to nominate pretty strong candidates. I still think it would be safe, but that is just worth mentioning. And then in the state of Iowa, I mean, like, LTE said that it would be likely because Chuck Grassley, people don't like how old he is and they don't want to vote for him because he's so old. Which, I mean, it's not that they don't like old people; it's that they don't want someone that old in the Senate. But I feel like looking at this, they're not gonna vote against their ideology. Like, if they're a Republican or even a right-leaning independent, they're not gonna vote blue just because they see that Chuck Grassley's old. They may not turn out, but still, Grassley's gonna win the majority of voters that turn out regardless. Because I mean, like, they likely won't not turn out. They'll likely still turn out regardless. I do think Grassley probably won. His grandson primarying him, he's still probably popular enough to be able to win by a safe margin. and that is it. Now, for the Democrats' likely states, I actually don't have any for them. For the Republicans, Missouri, New Hampshire, Florida, and Alaska. Now, looking at these, Alaska, with ranked choice voting, Murkowski is going to not get many first votes from Republicans. She will get a lot of, first rank votes. But she'll get a lot of second and third from Democrats and independents, which will help her and will probably get her a likely margin victory. In the state of Florida, Marco Rubio is obviously a strong candidate for the state. He won it by over 7%. He was even able to carry Hillsborough County, so he's obviously a pretty strong candidate. I think he's going to do a little bit worse, especially against Stephanie Murphy. He'll probably win it by a 5.5% margin of victory. But I think that he's still strong enough to be able to win it. In New Hampshire, Sununu hasn't announced yet, but he is just insanely popular. I don't see him not being able to win. He's probably going to win by a 8-9% margin of victory just because he's so overwhelmingly popular. In the state of Missouri, first off, the Missouri Democratic Party is pretty good. Second off, I'm probably going to botch his name. Actually, I can just go get it over here. I think it's Eric Greitens is his name. I'll go, I have 2 Wikipedia tabs open. Let's hope that this is the right one. Yes, it is. Okay, 2022 Senate. One of them is I think this is 2024 presidential election. He's announced, by the way. He's a bad candidate. Eric Greitens. He's like a Chris Kobach, however you want to pronounce it. I'm bad at pronouncing names, of Missouri. As LTE put it, which I do like how he put that. He is not going to be an amazing candidate. I do think, though, that he'd still probably win it by, it's not sure that he'll be the candidate. I think that we don't have enough information yet, but just given the fact that he's announced and that the Missouri Democratic Party typically runs good candidates, I'm going to give it to them likely. If he does win and the Missouri Democratic Party runs another strong candidate, I'm going to label it lean red, maybe tilt red. Best case scenario for Democrats, lean blue characterization, maybe tilt blue. But right now, Missouri is just likely red. And that is it. For the Democrats' lean states, Nevada, Arizona, and that is it. So, looking at these, Nevada, we can go back over here. We can go back over here. Adam Laxalt, I think, is in the publicly expressed interest tab. He is publicly expressed interest. He is a failed candidate. He's not going to be able to win. And then, I don't know why I keep on forgetting his name. There it is. Sandoval. I don't know why I always forget his name. I always think Slack when he's their governor, their current governor, instead of Sandoval. Sandoval is not going to run. It's highly unlikely. If he were to run, it could become very competitive. One could see a tilt red Nevada. But it would take a lot to get him back. And I don't necessarily know that he would do amazing. He could win it. We can go look at his 2014 performance. This wasn't a red wave, mind you. So, it was a red wave, but he still did very well. Look at this margin of victory. He won it by a very, very large margin of victory. So I think that, best case scenario for him, we see likely red Nevada. But I just don't see him running. And even if he were to run, I don't necessarily know that he'd do amazing. I think that Laxalt is much more likely to become the nominee. In which case, it's a 3.5% margin of victory for Catherine Cortez Masto. Now, LTE did recently say in a video that it would be likely blue, because Jackie Rosen won it by a likely margin. But this was in a blue wave year, A and B. Catherine Cortez Masto isn't going to have the type of appeal to white rural voters that Jackie Rosen had. I still think that she'll probably do better than 2016, but she'll probably win it by 3.5% or 4%. In Arizona, Mark Kelly is a pretty strong candidate. He won by 2.4%. I think that we could see most of the GOP candidates are going to be pretty awful candidates. Kelly Ward, she's probably not going to run, but Kelly Ward, Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, they're all awful candidates. They're all right-wing Trumpists that are going to be very, very unpopular. I think that he's looking at a 3, maybe 4% margin of victory. Now for the Republicans' lean states, I'm going to say Ohio, and that is it. Now, looking at Ohio, it's an open seat. Tim Ryan, this is assuming that Tim Ryan runs. He's populist, he's progressive, similar to Sherrod Brown. I think that he could make the state seriously competitive. I just don't think he'd be able to win it, though. I think it'll probably be like a 4.5% margin of victory for whoever the GOP ends up running. If it was Jim Jordan, if it was Jim Jordan, it would probably be blue. It would probably be red. If it was like a establishmentarian moderate, it would probably be like lean blue. But regardless, GOP, they're probably gonna run a candidate that like there aren't a whole lot of the Ohio GOP. This is where this Trumpism helps because Trumpism is popular in a state like Ohio. So they're probably still gonna be able to win, even though Tim Ryan is honestly like a perfect candidate for the state. I do think he'll narrowly lose. Sorry about that. As for the Democrats' tilt states, I'm gonna say Georgia and Pennsylvania, while the Republicans will get Wisconsin and North Carolina. So looking at these, sorry, in the state of Georgia, Raphael Warnock won here by 2%. I think that looking at this, I mean, like, the GOP, they don't have a whole lot of amazing candidates that they can run. Doug Collins, Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue's not going to run. He ran and didn't run. Herschel Walker is a pretty big name, and he could be a strong candidate there. I think, though, at this point, Walker, if he were to run, he'd probably be the GOP's best candidate. Maybe Doug Collins. But I still think it's tilt blue. Also with the voter suppression laws, that's essentially a put it into tilt blue as well. I mean, like Walker obviously being a strong candidate, but he would probably still be like a lean blue. Warnock would still do well, I think. Probably went like 0.8. Normally, though, without these laws, there would probably be like a 2.4% margin of victory for Warnock. Considering that it's shifting, and now the GOP don't have a whole lot of amazing candidates. But considering the fact that there are these new voter suppression laws in place, I'm going to label it tilt blue. In Pennsylvania, I had it lean blue, but just considering the fact that it'll likely be a mini red wave, I'm going to label it tilt blue. It'll be a small wave, but a wave nonetheless, if you can even call it that. I mean, it could be a blue wave. We can debate it. I don't think it'll be really a wave at all. It'll be a narrow red wave. But I think that looking at this, I mean, like Fetterman, Kenyatta, Connor Lamb, if he decides to run, they're all good candidates. But I mean, like the GOP in a lot of these, this is like Ohio where Trumpism helps them. I think that they would still lose. But just considering all that, it'll probably be like a tilt blue, like 0.8% margin victory for the Democrats. In Wisconsin, Ron Johnson is not very popular, at least from what I've seen. I haven't checked his approval rating. But from what I've seen, I haven't really gotten any positive reception about Ron Johnson. He did not do very well with the white working class either, but he did still win the state by a pretty large margin of victory, even though he did so bad with the white working class, which kind of confuses me. I would assume that he did well in like Milwaukee, which would also confuse me because he's Trumpist, but I don't know. I think he's a pretty bad candidate for the white working class. But I do think he would still narrowly pick up the victory. Just because, I mean, like, he was able to win by so much in 2016. If it'll be a mini red wave, he'll probably win it by like 0.8%. Narrow, but he'll still win it. And instead of North Carolina, I mean, like, I don't remember their names. I keep on forgetting people's names. Sorry about this. There are a lot of potential candidates, which makes life kind of difficult. Sorry about that. I was working on an election night. I've been spending a lot of the day working on, Mark Walker. I'm gonna go through here. And Jeff Jackson were the ones I was using in my prediction. I'm actually working on an election night right now, though, between Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden. So I'm gonna put the Senate one on hold for a minute. I just think that, I mean, like, the Democrats won't be able to they'll do well in the suburbs, but not well enough to be able to flip it. Also, considering the fact that, I mean, like, they're not going to do well enough for the rural voters either. Biden was a pretty good candidate. I do think that we could see the Democrats do well, but it just won't be enough. Also, considering the fact that there won't be enough time for the suburbs to shift. with Richard Burr, I would label it lean red. But right now, since he's not running, it's tilt red. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for the next video tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be that election night. If not, I have a few other ideas. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all there. Bye!